Hi everyone, it's Don and I hope you're having a fantastic day. Well, big news today. Apparently the virus has hit a cruise ship. The only cruise ship, Royal Caribbean, has set sail since March. So yes, you've probably heard already, there's all kinds of stories and articles and people are talking about it. Royal Caribbean's Quantum of the Seas in Singapore has had a person of 83 years old test positive and had to end their cruise in Singapore. And again, it's the very first ship Royal Caribbean has set sail under their own flag. And it's the third cruise in to Cruises to Nowhere in a country that has like next to no cases of virus. In the last 2 weeks, Singapore, with a population of 5.5 million people, has had an average of 1 case a day. Just to give you a quick example, here in Ottawa, we have just around 1 million people, and we panic when we hit 40 cases a day. So they are 5 times more population and 40 times less cases than we have here in Ottawa. So it seems like a perfect place to restart the cruise industry. Gentleman reported on the 3rd day in that he has had some diarrhea issues. Sorry, I had to say it. But they immediately quarantined him and started using all the technology they have on board, the tracing and looking at which crew members, which clients, which passengers, who might have been in direct contact and have been near this person, and they immediately contacted them and started separating them away from all the general passengers, as well as telling all passengers to return to their cabins and quarantine them all in their own cabins. And from that point on, all food and contact would be sent to them, like with room service and things along those lines. But the people who had been in direct contact were isolated in a different area by themselves in the ships in their own separate areas. So it seems like they arrived back in Singapore, and the gentleman was taken off the ship and brought to hospital. Because there's only 1 case, they brought the person to hospital for further testing, and it didn't appear that he's in any more distress than simply diarrhea, stomach flu kind of symptoms. But they had done a quick test on board and it did come up positive, so they immediately contacted the Singapore and the government officials there, and they told them turn that cruise around, and they had to head back. So people are having their cruise canceled on the 3rd of the 4th day. Now, a lot of people are saying, see, we told you COVID spreads like wildfire on a cruise ship. Well, there's 2,500 people on this cruise ship, and 1 person had it for 3 days, and so far there have been no traces on board. Well, one of the reasons for that is, yeah, he didn't have it. That's right. All these reports that you've been seeing out there right now were right. There was cases on board that people were, that he had tested positive and they had turned their cruise ship around. But, you know, they didn't mention that they're going to test them again. So far, on land in the hospital, that gentleman has had 2 tests. Both of them have come up negative, and now a 3rd test is scheduled. So the big scare and everything turns out to be probably a false positive. And those quick tests are very, very unreliable, especially if the person is having an illness like a cold or a flu or diarrhea, apparently. That 1 in 10 can give a false positive. So this one of the things that kind of begs the question to me, because the Quantum of the Seas has their own lab on board, from what I thought, that they were able to do testing on directly on board. But if they did only a quick test, I guess there may not have been enough time to develop full test and everything before they arrived in Singapore, and they ushered the gentleman off the cruise. But here again, we have a case of a false positive turning around a cruise ship, and it was simply one case. Not a family, not a couple, not anybody. One person had some symptoms, and they ended up turning around the cruise ship. The good news in all this is the protocol seemed to work, right? So people are going to say, well, you know what? It was negative. So there really was no protocols to follow because he couldn't have spread it because he didn't really have it. But had they had a positive test, they would have been screaming at the top of their lungs, look, we told you COVID it's going to get on your ships. We told you, right? So that seems to be a no-win situation, no matter when you're going up against people who just want the industry to turn around and burn and catch on fire and disappear. Those people, you will never change their minds, right? So we don't try to. We're just going to go along and say, look what happened. We tested people before getting on board. A person had a stomach virus of some sort on board, and the protocols kicked in immediately. There was no mass spread. There was no panic on the ships. All the passengers on board came out and said, you know what? We're okay. We're not worried about it. The crew was fantastic. They kept us informed. We knew what we were doing, and there was no panic from anybody. And the procedures went through perfectly. People got off the ship the next day. They tested everybody again. All negative. Not a single other person tested positive. And they all got off the ship. Not so bad. So here's one thing we want to keep an eye on, though, because here's the procedure for what happened with the paying passengers when we start here in North America. The gentleman who was diagnosed as having COVID, had he had COVID, I don't know what's going to happen now, but we're curious. Had he had COVID, his entire, would have been refunded, his entire cruise, plus the hospital stay and everything is covered. I imagine the hospital stay and all that will still be covered. But will he get his money back now, or will he only get 1 day like all the rest of the passengers? That's right, all the rest of the passengers on a 4-day cruise will get the equivalent percentage of 1 day missed cruise because it had to end 1 day early. So when we start up again here in North America and we go on a 7-day cruise, and on day 4 they have to turn around the ship for any reason, you can expect not a full refund, but a refund of a certain percentage, and that's if they end up giving people back their money. They may end up having people sign waivers saying that we understand our cruise could be cut short. We don't know yet because we don't see what's happening over here. So good news. I'm glad this gentleman was okay. I'm glad there really was no outbreak out there. It seemed very, very odd that they only have 1 case a day from 5.5 million people, and then you put 2,500 people on the cruise ship and there's a case. That seems mind-boggling odds to me that would happen, and as it turns out, it doesn't seem like it happened at all. Well, I hope you appreciate this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. Want to see more tips, more tricks, more travel vlogs from around the world? Hit that subscribe button. Till next time, have yourself a safe and a great vacation.